What's up guys, Evan Jarvis here. In today's video, you are going to learn the math, the data, and the evidence behind poker plays that actually show a profit. How Navy SEAL and football quarterback training techniques can be applied to study poker, and what our newest team pro Alex Fitzgerald has learned from studying the outliers in poker. You ready to learn? Let's get stacking.
Hey guys, this is Alexander Fitzgerald, or Assassinato, doing another free webinar. It's also an honor to be here with you guys. I know everyone on the internet is competing for your time these days. I'm of course proud of the fact that I do so many of these lessons for free, but I also recognize your time is worth more than money in many instances, so it means a lot to me that you guys would spend some of your time with me. Now anyways, let's get into the coaching. Today's lesson is entitled How to Think Like a Poker Player, Bet Sizing Made Easy. The first few slides, we're going to look at an introduction to the format. You might recognize it from one of my YouTube videos. If you've seen it before, bear with me. Most people in this class probably haven't seen it, so it's important to me they learn how my How to Think Like a Poker Player series works. There will be a ton of new material after the introduction. Also, if any of you are trying to test yourselves at home intensely, as you should be, grab a pen and paper or have your smartphone out open to a word processor, and be sure to not read the chat where perhaps some students who have seen some of my other lectures will be blurting out the answers. How to learn about poker. When I was younger, I was pretty successful with just raw aggression. The standard pros often chortled at how I played, saying my plays weren't mathematically intelligent. I was insecure, so when I fell on hard times, I committed myself to learning the game. Check out those sideburns. But honestly, guys, I've been lucky enough to have a successful online and live career. Online, I've been blessed enough to win WCOOP and Scoop events. Live, I have EPT and WPT final tables. But I wasn't exactly a finesse-laden player to start. Many guys would give me a hard time when I came up the rankings. People made training videos discussing why I was so bad. When I learned the game, I was actually flabbergasted by how much of this was 8th grade arithmetic. Combinatorics, as we've discussed before, are not that difficult to execute. It's simple division. It's just a big word to scare you. Many of the smart pros, I won't say names, couldn't reverse engineer their hands on Cardrunner's EV or Flopzilla. I learned this because once I got a little bit better with all these tools, I started getting invited to a lot of hand history discussion groups, and people would make claims about plays that, if they were true, they were quite preposterous or just didn't make a whole lot of logical sense, and I'd ask, could you please show me the evidence? I think that's a pretty good lesson in all of life, which is, if someone's going to tell you how to do something, that's one of the nicest things anybody could do for you, but they have to show you the evidence. If someone is giving you tips on how to be a carpenter, and they've been a carpenter for 22 years with quite a bit of business under their belt that's all been successful, and many families living under the roofs that they have built, that is something, that is a pedigree. But if a poker player has just won a tournament, that's not a ton to go off of, because as we've seen on TV, a lot of guys can win poker tournaments, and unfortunately, we give guys who win poker tournaments a lot of authority. So to find out whose authority is warranted and whose isn't, it's really good to look for the data, and a lot of times guys don't have it. Aggression is rewarded in No Limit Hold'em. Raising, 3-betting, c-betting generally always have a positive expectation. Young guys just happen to do more of that than anyone. From this bet of equity, they were accepting tons of equity post-flop to hero call others or try and barrel pairs. There was less finesse than I could believe. So what I mean by that is they were accepting to lose more equity post-flop to hero call others and try and barrel pairs, right? And what I mean by that is they're trying to barrel people off of pairs that maybe they're not necessarily going to fold. So a good example of that is, let's say you c-bet on a board like 6-7-5, a board where people are really unlikely to just call you with a high card, or even further up like 8-7-6. the turn is a 2, and you know the guy didn't really call you with a high card, and that's not really a card that people are going to fold pairs on, and most of what they flatted you with are pairs. Well, you'll find a lot of guys when you're studying poker who do try to get people to fold pairs there, and that used to work like 5, 6, 7 years ago, but it doesn't work so much now, which is one of my chief criticisms when you're looking through poker trainers is many of their techniques tend to be predicated on stuff that I'm not sure works so hot anymore. Whereas, full disclosure, everything I'm going to teach you is what I teach my hundreds of private students. The great thing about my job is if it doesn't work, I don't get paid. I get fired pretty quickly. So I know it works in the field because I have to be checking that all the time. But the thing I was mostly trying to say is if you raise 3-bet and c-bet a lot of the time, you are going to have a lot of equity, and that's going to put you in a spot where you can do these superfluous plays, such as like hero call a little bit more than you should, which there's not really much evidence many people are good at, or try to barrel people off of pairs, which is another thing that is very tenuous when you study it. Anyway, getting back to basics, systems. I wanted to confirm my findings once I started getting into the 8th grade arithmetic of poker. And so I went through thousands of professional poker players' databases, literal billions of hands. I read the book Moneyball, and it just changed my life. I thought, why doesn't somebody do that in poker? And I did, and I created a system. I found the same winning formula again and again. Over months, I went through each statistical breakdown. I found outliers who juiced their numbers in a particular category, and I figured out what they were doing. And I put that together in a system. And I'm not going to lie, you don't look like the sexiest poker player alive when you're playing that system, but it works with all my clients, and it's really fun. I mean, obviously, okay, not everybody it works for, but the vast majority it works for. It would be a line. There's no system that works perfectly for everybody. But the vast majority of my guys really love Moneyball Poker because the resulting systems I took from database analysis were composed in my Master Tournament Poker in One Class series. That is an extremely solid version of the strategy I put together, and reviews and sales would indicate people love that. For those who sought riskier elaborations, Master the Flop did the trick. Master the Flop is like, okay, Master Tournament Poker in One Class was a lot of figuring out how to get people to fold pre-flop and how to get people to fold on the flop. Master the Flop is much more, okay, the guy has called you on the flop, how are you going to get him off this hand? Or how are you going to get a lot of money from this not-so-great hand? But as I kept teaching these systems more and more, I started asking myself, what happens when you go off script? Because you do have to go off script quite often when you're playing tournaments. I just got back from, I was lucky enough to play a couple World Poker Tour events, and I was lucky enough to cash in the Borgata one. And I had to go off of my systems quite often. There were times my systems just didn't apply. Of course, that's much more likely in high-stakes tournaments, but it comes up in general a lot. I was lucky enough to final table WPT Prague at the tail end of 2016. That was an example of a tournament I was not there. I could not use a lot of the Moneyball system because a lot of people in Europe have seen it before. Works much better in the United States and Canada. But what happens when you go off script? I think it's good to start with an analogy. American football is the third largest sport in the world behind, obviously, soccer and cricket. Every year, all of America's universities produce 1,000 starting quarterbacks. For those of you who don't watch American football, the quarterback is the guy who starts with the ball on every play. He is the most important guy on the field. He's the commander. Now, of those 1,000 starting quarterbacks, it's interesting to note there's only 96 quarterbacks in the NFL. Most are tenured. Last year had a record of new first-round quarterbacks at 5. So of those 1,000 quarterbacks every year, maybe a record of 5 will get in and get a starting job. What separates the elite in this really technical position in sports is what separates the elite in poker and American football is an ability to think under the bright lights. Believe it or not, many college quarterbacks who are incredible at that stage flame out in the NFL. Teams have started investing millions to prepare players for professional football. I've taken the liberty of stealing their methods for my uses. It's worth pointing out, guys, that the quarterback position is likely the most technical spot in sports and has the most correlations to poker. Just like in poker, all collegiate quarterbacks start with a much simpler systems than what is typically used at the NFL level, which is what I've taught you guys in the past. For reference, my poker playbook is much like a collegiate playbook. It's solid, it erases the ability to make many big mistakes, and it capitalizes heavily on the enemy's errors. When you get to the top level, however, say a Bellagio 10K, many guys know the tricks you're using. So you need to prepare to learn how to think like a poker player to navigate around them. My playbook will get you to the final table, but I want to help you work your way around the pros. Some of that is innate talent, but a lot of it isn't. Otherwise, the NFL wouldn't invest tens of millions in quarterback training. When they prepare their multi-million-dollar asset NFL football teams, most football teams use a simulator for them to practice in. There they are presented with defensive formations from large teams. There are literally hundreds of them and countless variations. The quarterback is asked, "What do you see?" He generally has 6 seconds to make a response because if he's lucky, he gets 6 seconds in the field. Sometimes he's got 3. In these drills, the quarterback is taught to see the most important detail first. If he gets dragged down by small details, he will kill the play, the game, the franchise. Navy SEALs have the exact same training methods. Everything must be simplified into 1 or 2 items. With lives on the line, they don't trust anything else. You know what Navy SEALs do a lot of too, guys? PowerPoints. They break down their complex ideas on PowerPoints first, then they try to simplify it as much as possible. Not every guy who can go through Hell Week is necessarily able to keep cool under pressure, but when he has one simple task he was prepared for, he often can. Building simulators. My webinars were always training packs I sent to my students so they'd have my playbook without me having to repeat myself for a 4,000th time. That left me to do what I really enjoy. Prepare students who can spot minor variations that change a play. This is the nitty-gritty of what I do day in and day out, hammering on proper observation and clear thought. You want to deal with difficult situations with me in the privacy of your own home. You don't want to be figuring things out in the final 16 of a WSOP bracelet event. However, to put pressure on yourself, I ask far more questions in my simulator testing as opposed to normal. There are timers on everything, so I'm just letting you guys know this is going to be more intense than my other webinars, okay? This is much more like how I teach, okay? And in my teaching, if I can tell the guy's not paying attention, I'm much more of an ass. That's just what I get paid. I don't get paid to be your friend. I get paid to make sure you get it. That's pretty much it. And if a guy's paying attention, I will be conversational. If he's not paying attention, I'm not. But this is much more like my coaching. My coaching is far more intense than the more leisurely webinars we've done in the past. So this one's going to be a short one because I know you guys don't have a ton of time. Not everybody has a ton of time. So I'm going to try to keep it to a few really fun, intense things right away, and then we'll be done with our lesson. But yeah, anyway, the hardest moments, my simulator packs are designed with literal hundreds of defensive formations, and you get a lot of the simulated stuff in my systems packs too, like Master the Flop and Master Tournament Poker in one class. They're composed from hands all over the world, especially How to Think Like a Poker Player is very much built on that. How to Think Like a Poker Player is more simulations and more situations than any of them. This is my first one ever. I have the materials in my private lesson files to make 10 more. This is my first like solely simulator, put you in tough situations again and again and again. This one focuses on the most critical decisions that everybody botches. There are no easy roads. Learning my systems is a time-consuming enterprise, but it is simple. Learning how to think like a professional poker player takes a lifetime. However, with a proper coach, the process can be simplified immensely. And if I do my job right, by the time you're done, you will be thinking much more like a poker player than before you started. So let's start with a few examples you look at a lot that maybe you didn't know, maybe you're not thinking of in the way that would be the most effective for you making money. And let's see if we can simplify this as much as possible. This video has been brought to you by How to Think Like a Poker Player. I have a lot more information about this and how to think like a poker player. Guys, we looked through 3 situations in this video. The full product has 12 situations from poker games all over the world, and it puts you under much more pressure. It really harps on my fundamentals, which are much different than what's in every poker training book. You will never play poker the same way again after you use this product.
And that wraps up this part of the training series. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned a lot from it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know how I'm doing. And if you learned something from this video, please let me know in the comments what your key takeaway or your biggest aha moment from watching this video was. I promise you, if you do that and then look at the other comments that are there, you're going to learn a whole lot more. This is the beauty of YouTube. This is the beauty of community. This is how we grow as a team, by sharing our insights, reading what others' insights were, and engaging in discussion to further develop those thought processes. I really hope you're enjoying this learning series. And when you're ready to watch more training lessons like this one, feel free to check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Gripst, or come by my website, www.gripst.com, and join Team Gripst for exclusive discounts, offers, and training opportunities. We got a whole lot of good ones coming on the way, and I hope that you are someone I will be getting to share them with. Let's get stacking. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it educational and entertaining. If you want to join Team Gripst, click on that subscribe button and tap that bell to be notified every time a new video goes live. For behind the scenes updates and motivational quotes from my poker journey, follow me on Instagram. And when you're ready to take one step closer to becoming poker's next champion, click on me in 3, 2, 1, and let's get stacking.